What do you think?
I think he's in trouble.
Let's get to Diddy's courtroom meltdown. And you could visibly see that he was very angry.
We all know who's got something to say about this whole Diddy trial, and that's 50 Cent! Those of you who don't know, 50 Cent was the absolute first one banging on Diddy. He's been doing it for over a decade now.
Puppy's confirmed for Freakoff. It's lit! Nah. Everybody's scared to drink. Coffee cups. Your butt sore.
You're not getting the full story about what happened in Diddy's courtroom today. Sources say tensions ran high behind closed doors, with reports of disruption during the hearing. It all allegedly stemmed from a leaked video that surfaced mid-session, footage tied to past controversies. Meanwhile, 50 Cent is reacting online, clearly feeling vindicated. What's unfolding now isn't just a legal battle. It's a spotlight moment that's shaking everything up. Stay tuned.
I know you've been heavy on social media talking about it.
He did it. And I'm the only one who's been vocal about this long before it actually.
Oh, you've been saying this for a long time now. And then no one was, they're just, why is he saying this? And now it's coming out like crazy. I mean,
but I also didn't participate. I also didn't go to those parties.
Yeah.
So a lot of the celebrity culture that you don't hear saying anything is because they participated to a degree.
But was there a reason you never went to those parties back in the day? Obviously, I know what was going on there, but is there a reason you never did?
I'm just not with all that freaky shit. Put the stuff to these door. I'm not into that type of stuff.
50 Cent once raised eyebrows about Diddy's behavior behind the scenes, claims many brushed off as industry drama. But with new legal revelations coming to light, those past warnings are being re-examined. As Diddy faces serious courtroom challenges, 50 is seizing the moment on social media, and according to reports, Cassie Ventura's involvement may be a key turning point in the case.
Puffy's confirmed for Freakoff. It's lit! Nah. And everybody's scared to drink. Coffee cups. Your butt sore.
50 Cent isn't just commenting. Sources say he's played a role in spotlighting key evidence in Diddy's legal battle. On day one, prosecutors presented a 2016 hotel video that left the courtroom stunned. Though no audio played, the visuals were enough to shift the mood. Prosecutors framed Diddy as controlling, while his team pushed back, challenging the broader implications. Regardless, the impact was immediate, and 50 seems to think everything's unfolding just as he predicted.
Well, I think the first thing for the public to know that this is the first piece of evidence, kind of, if you will, is to have everyone remember how serious it was when we all saw it. And even though these jurors are expected to be unbiased and detached from anything in Diddy's world, so we're assuming they perhaps haven't seen the video, they now are probably going to feel the same way that the American public did when there was accusations and then there was some proof of it. So obviously there's a conversation. The prosecution is framing Diddy as a serial. But on the other hand, Diddy's defense is saying he's flawed, but not criminal. And so we're seeing somebody that actually has admitted his defense is saying, yes, he's made mistakes, but that does not mean he's a trafficker and all the other things that he is accused of. But I think, it pulls on the heartstrings and detaches people completely in any way that they may have been to the entertainer to now look at him as the human being that did something egregious, perhaps, and trying to connect the dots between if you are capable and open to doing something like this, what else might you do? And so I think it was a strong way to open up the argument. And I think that Diddy's team is going to have an uphill battle to climb to try to put that to the wayside of the jury's mind.
One of the first to speak out is Real Flores, a former hotel security guard turned LAPD officer. He testified to finding Cassie visibly shaken, with a broken vase nearby. When Diddy tried to downplay the scene, Flores claimed he was later offered hush money, which he refused. He also described stopping Diddy from taking staff phones. In that moment, Flores stood firm, doing what he believed was right.
Clearly, they tried to remove these videos. And he talks about how he took some on his own phone. As the transcript, sorry, there's so many transcripts. I'm making sure I gather you everything. He says he took video of the video to show his wife because he knew no one would believe it. He wanted to show his wife. So there was a copy on his phone as well, ironically. So, interesting details in this, and kudos to this guy. My goodness, to have the strength to be able to stand up to Diddy, to pin him against the wall, to confront him in that courtroom. I applaud this guy wholeheartedly. Bravo to him for standing up, and bravo to Cassie, who is out there still giving her testimony. We'll be reporting on her as well. We had an amazing conversation yesterday.
May have done more than speak out. Sources suggest his team played a role in bringing the full hotel footage to court. Raw and unedited, the video reportedly stunned the courtroom. As it played, 50 took to social media with his signature commentary. Meanwhile, Cassie Ventura, reportedly near the end of her pregnancy, gave emotional and detailed testimony describing patterns of control and disturbing behavior. The trial has taken a darker turn, and it's far from over.
The star witness is Cassie. She was a singer, Cassie Ventura. She signed with him when she was 18 years old, or right around there. She became a singer. She signed like a 10 record deal with Bad Boy Records, which is his. And within like 2 years, he started having, and he was with a different woman at the time, but shockingly, he wasn't faithful, and started sleeping with Cassie. And then she testified how in the beginning, by the way, when she took the stand, she was 8.5 months pregnant yesterday. His side was so worried about that making her look overly sympathetic that they asked if she could be brought in and put on the stand without the jury in the room. Look at this. I mean, like, apparently they're not exaggerating. She had that enormous belly that we all get in the very, very last few days, which is where like, it becomes like voyeuristic to even look at a woman at that point. It's just out of control. God bless you, Cassie. So anyway, the judge overruled that and said she can walk in, her full pregnant self. And she did. And she testified about how he started very early on telling her he wanted her to participate in these freak-offs. That's what he called them. And these things, I mean, it's the right word for them. I mean, they're absolutely depraved behavior where he would hire these male stars, and she's testifying. This is all, her testimony, that they would come over and that Sean Combs would be there watching and directing everything, and that there would be multiple within the one freak-off, which could go for days. But even if it went for hours, there'd be multiple sessions in which she would have to perform with these male stars, including in like outfits and fishnets and masquerade masks and hooker heels is how it was described. And he would tell him exactly what he wanted and how, and then he would participate in some of them. We talked yesterday, forgive me, listening audience, about how he allegedly, both himself and through the male, urinated on her and I guess in her mouth, to where she testified she was gagging. She thought she was going to throw up. She testified that the Freakoffs, quote, became a job where there was no space to do anything else but to recover and to just feel normal again, that they could go from 36 hours to as long as 4 days, that they took, quote, a big chunk of my life, sometimes on a nearly weekly basis. At the end of the sessions, the hotel linens were often very soiled with baby oil residue, as well as bodily fluids, including blood and urine. And his staff, keep in mind, he's being accused of like racketeering, like the way mob boss does, where he has an enterprise of criminals around him. That's why these details are important, that his staff would both set up the freak-off rooms and clean up the freak-off rooms, that eventually they graduated to adding like television lighting, like Klieg lights in there.
A key detail from Cassie's testimony focused on Diddy's alleged obsession with control, including a repeated demand that she appear glistening with baby oil. She claimed it had to be reapplied constantly, with entire bottles used during each encounter. The aftermath reportedly left hotel rooms in disarray. When asked who directed it all, Cassie gave a consistent answer.
Controlled everything about these freak-offs, according to Cassie. She says that he decided who the escorts would be. He would approve the escorts before she contacted them. He would pick the locations. He would set the lighting, even placing candles and moving them around during the course of the freak-offs. And he would determine what she did with the escort. He would tell her what to do and then telling him, where to. Very, very, graphic and explosive testimony from Cassie. And I think, being in the overflow room when she was talking about it, there were gasps when she said that.
Something else that came up that we've heard a lot about before is the baby oil aspect. The defense addressed this in their opening statement, saying, you've probably heard of his love of baby oil. That's not a federal crime. But in this side of the story we heard from Cassie, we started to hear how that baby oil was being used and how it was in an environment that made her feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I think the importance of the baby oil, and today it's something that the prosecution was asking her over and over about how many bottles of baby oil did you use, which shockingly she said that they would go through sometimes over 10 bottles of baby oil during one Freakoff. They would have to have more baby oil brought in. And I think the element that the prosecution is getting at here is the racketeering element. The baby oil is being used to portray this whole operation that Diddy had around him, assistants and chiefs of staff and things like that, bringing in stuff to the Freakoffs, whether it was drugs that assistants would bring in or, lubricant or baby oil, which is something that was very heavily talked about. Cassie also said that she was just doused in baby oil. She would be forced to have it rubbed all over her, rubbed all over the escort. She said by the end of the Freakoffs, the rooms were often covered in baby oil. The linens were completely soiled. The furniture was messed up, and that Diddy would get these really high bills from the hotel about replacing the furniture.
Statement. There wasn't another way. Captured the fear and control she described in court. As her testimony made headlines, 50 Cent quickly responded online, sharing posts, sketches, and reactions. For him, the trial became more than just a story. It was another moment to publicly challenge Diddy.
All back. After an objection, the prosecutor then asks, what concerns did you have about not getting into the pool with baby oil? Ventura responds, that, amongst other things, just his temper. If that is something that he wanted, Sean wanted it to happen, that's what was going to happen. There wasn't another.
50 Cent didn't hold back, sharing videos and comments about the unusual evidence shown in court, including reports of numerous lubricant bottles. Prosecutors emphasized the case was about control, not just items. Cassie's testimony described difficult encounters, coping with pressure, and fear of consequences as she resisted. She said it felt more like obligation than consent, shaped by fear and power.
Y'all know who's got something to say about this whole Diddy trial, and that's 50 Cent! Those of you who don't know, 50 Cent was the absolute first one banging on Diddy. He's been doing it for over a decade now. So today we found out that Cassie said that Diddy asked her to get in an inflatable pool full of baby oil. Y'all remember that movie Old School where they had the KY wrestling in the pool? Sounds like he's ripping that off. 50 immediately started making AI images of Diddy and took to Instagram with these, like, look at this. This goofy ass shit right here is my favorite, and it shows why 50 will always be the king of trolls.
Judge Arun Subramanian reportedly grew frustrated as the trial progressed. With Cassie heavily pregnant and a tight schedule, Diddy's defense attempted to introduce 400 new exhibits overnight to challenge her testimony. The judge rejected the move, and the prosecution pushed back. The courtroom tension was intense.
Feared that Diddy would release some of these Freakoff videos unless she did certain things. The question is, what certain things? She begged Combs to delete these videos. She said that he used the threat of releasing the videos to shame her, including while she was seeing someone else. See, the problem with that is the seeing someone else is not the criminal charge. Now, that sounds to me, if it's true, that it's extortion. I mean, that's a crime.
After the judge rejected a last-minute defense move, Diddy reportedly became very upset. Witnesses said he expressed his frustration toward his legal team, creating a tense moment in the courtroom. His reaction surprised those present in the room.
As these text messages that Cassie had, and they were having her read them, but it just came across as disorganized and ineffective. In fact, many of the text messages that they kept showing in court, well, they just approved things that she's already admitted to. It was just really weird. And then even some of the things they presented, the text messages, well, they backfired on the stand. I would say most of them backfired on the stand. They had absolutely no punch to them. We were expecting all of this evidence and this really hard fighting cross-examination. But if it wasn't backfiring, it just fell flat. There was really no teeth to the entire thing. Now, one of the things they started asking her about outside the text messages was about this drug-laced baby oil during Freakoffs. Altogether, it's irrelevant to the entire case, but somehow they wanted to bring this up. And it just seems like it was made to create sensational headlines rather than get to anything substantive. And especially the things that Cassie has already testified to. Like, how does drug-laced baby oil help you at all. Now, when they asked her about it, Cassie said, like, during our relationship, there was no drug-laced baby oil. So again, that alone backfired. But there were multiple instances of things backfiring in the courtroom. A lot of people in the courtroom felt like the defense's approach just wasted time.
So much at stake, Diddy reportedly grew frustrated with his legal team during the trial, taking a more hands-on approach by giving instructions and making notes. His behavior reportedly disrupted the team, creating tension in the courtroom. Meanwhile, 50 Cent appeared to react to the situation online.
Courtroom meltdown. And you could visibly see that he was very angry. So he had this meltdown right after a judge reprimanded his defense team for delaying tactics. I brought this up in another video. Overnight, they submitted 400 exhibits to the court. And the prosecutors were livid, but not just the prosecutors. The judge was pretty pissed off about this. They're trying to introduce this last minute evidence. Now they claim that it's for, to refute Cassie's testimony in the first 2 days when she was on the stand as a witness for the prosecution, and that they need this to fight back what she was saying. But overall, it just disrupted the courtroom. And the judge is trying to keep these things going. He doesn't want Cassie to be on the stand, but a certain amount of time, because I always keep saying she's 8.5 months pregnant. She can give birth any day. And he's trying to keep this timeline. This is already a very long trial. It's expected to last 8 to 10 weeks. So he was not putting up with any of the shenanigans. Getting back to Diddy being pissed off.
Diddy's courtroom demeanor reportedly showed signs of strain.
And then one by one, he calls each one over individually and berates them, like snarling and getting loud and just really dramatic. You could see it on his face. This is what people are reporting. So he's reprimanding his own defense team. Now, of course, he is the client. He's paying millions of dollars for this defense. He's bringing in 1,000 different lawyers for different things. So I can understand him being upset, but the evidence is the evidence. They have what they have to work with. I don't know if he's hoping they can manufacture something, if they can spin a better narrative, but these are top attorneys. So if they're not able to do it, the only person he should be pissed at is himself. Another little tidbit about this. Not only was he berating them and showing himself being visibly pissed off, but he was actually calling them derogatory names, cussing them out. Yes. I mean, we expect that from Diddy. If you ever watched Making the Band back in the day, you could see back then what a disgusting man he was, how derogatory he would speak to people, the names he would say, the things he would have them do. He had one time some of these kids who were trying to make it into one of his bands and become artists, become stars, walk from Manhattan, where they were staying, all the way to Brooklyn to, I believe, what's the cheesecake place? I forget the name of it. I've actually eaten there before, the one they have now in Times Square. It wasn't only in Brooklyn then, but they now have different locations. But he had them walk all the way there, across a bridge, miles, in order to get some cheesecake. It later came out, years later, this came out recently, that cheesecake was actually for Beyonce. Now, we don't know that Beyonce demanded this cheesecake. She may have just said she wanted cheesecake. Someone could have drove over and gotten her some cheesecake. But instead, he had these kids walk there, get the cheesecake, and then they didn't even want the cheesecake when it was done. So he's used to berating people, having them do what he wants, and cussing them out, which he would do on that show. But we've seen this multiple times from Diddy, multiple reports, witnesses, people who have been subjected to this, that this is how Diddy operates, even in business. Even in business situations, he will do this. And imagine, he's on trial and he's cussing out his attorneys. Is that supposed to help them, give him a better defense? It makes no sense, but it's in part with his personality type, and he just can't see.
His legal team appeared tense. The judge expressed frustration.
He started passing notes, and barked orders, directed the attorney's actions, including what questions to ask and how to proceed. So the female defense attorney who was doing the questions, she had to keep pausing just so she could go back and forth and get notes from Diddy and the other lawyers. And she had to alter her line of questioning in real time. And you can tell this is what made their entire line of questioning, which was already scattered and nonsensical, even worse, because I guess Diddy is working off his memories and wants them to press these questions, but they haven't been vetted. They can't ask just anything in court. There has to be a build up to it, a lead up to it. They can't just throw out any type of thing to the wall to see what sticks. But in Diddy's mind, again, he has to be in control. And this is how he's asserting control even over his own lawyers in the courtroom. But it's making the defense worse. What was already scattered is even worse. It's more scattered than it ever was. And then the jury can see him doing this. They can see him upset. They can see him angry. They see the control he's trying to assert over his own legal defense team. That does not look good in a courtroom.
And 50 Cent seemed ready to respond online.
They were at the Cannes Film Festival, and Diddy accused her of stealing drugs. And when he accused her, she says he threw her off his boat and then showed her and then they get on an airplane somehow to go home. Cassie is asked by prosecutors, what happened at Cannes? She says, Sean accused me of taking drugs from his boat. He threw me off, but my passport was still in the boat. And the prosecutor says, and you were on the red carpet that same night? She says, yes. Did you attend the movie? Yes. How'd you get back to New York? She says, on a commercial flight. I traded my seat to get away from him, but he traded to get next to me. Prosecutor, what did he show you? Cassie, Freakoff videos. He played them for me on one of his laptops. He said he'd release them. Now you would expect her to say, or prosecutors to ask, release them unless you did what? That wasn't asked. That wasn't asked. It wasn't that he would release the videos unless you participated in the next Freakoff. Nothing like that is said. The prosecutor just jumps to, how did you feel? She says, trapped. Prosecutor, when you landed in New York, what did you do? Cassie, we went to dinner. Then he wanted to have a Freakoff. So we had a Freakoff. Prosecutor, why did you do it? Cassie, not threaten me. You see, again, if this is true, Diddy is beyond horrific.